Governor Allen, another topic to cover, the District of Columbia, capital of the United States of America. Currently, it has some sort of representation in Congress. For years, it didn't. Back in 1961, the 23rd Amendment awarded 3 electoral votes and 1 non-voting delegate, not a representative, but a non-voting delegate is the title, to sit in the House of Representatives. So that is the current status of where things stand with the District of Columbia in relation to the United States Congress. Going forward from here, there are probably several different theories of what should or shouldn't be done. Could you summarize that a little bit for us?
Sure. Well, the District of Columbia, as you know, and your viewers know, was created to be the capital of the United States. It was kind of a compromise in the middle. In those days, it was an eastern country, eastern U.S., and it's kind of in the middle. It's actually somewhat more on the southern side, but still in the middle of the eastern seaboard. And the states, though, realized that they ought to have some representation in voting for president. And 3/4 of the states passed that 23rd Amendment, awarding 3 electoral votes to the District of Columbia and the residents of the District of Columbia, and the representative or delegate who doesn't vote, but still has influence in the House of Representatives, but no representation in the United States Senate. There's probably 3 different views. I'll go with my favorite view, which I'll say that third and last.
All righty.
One side is saying the District of Columbia should not be treated as a state, because some say it ought to be a state, and that's that view, because it's a district. It doesn't have the ability to do what states do, and it's small. It can't handle its own trash. It can't do this. It can't do that, and it's too small to be a state. And it was never created to be a state. It was created to be the seat of government, and so nothing should change from that. The other side is it has whatever the number of say it's 1 million people, 800,000 people, whatever the population is they ought to have representation in Congress, and that's very logical. That and they have their license plate, taxation without representation on some District of Columbia license plates, and there's a logic, and that's certainly a worthwhile principle. My solution, and some people agree with this, is let's look at history. Part of the original District of Columbia is Arlington County, Virginia, and some of what is presently Arlington and part of Alexandria, Virginia. That was retroceded or given back to Virginia in the late 1840s. They said they didn't need it, and it was given back to Virginia. And so what I would do is you take the federal enclave part of the District of Columbia, where the White House is, the monuments, the Supreme Court building, the U.S. Capitol building, the downtown mall area, where no one lives other than those who are the residents of the White House. Retrocede all the rest of it, give it back to Maryland. And for a period of time, there will be a member of Congress from that part of the district that is now retroceded or given back to Maryland. Then the Maryland senators would be representing all the rest of the District of Columbia. You would also need to repeal, though, this 23rd Amendment that you just talked about. Otherwise, the White House being in that district, you'd have the president and his or her family casting 3 electoral votes, and that's way too much power for one family to get 3 electoral votes. So you want to repeal that, but that would be a way of saying that the people of the District of Columbia would have voting representation in the House of Representatives and have representation from the U.S. senators. So to me, that's the best solution to it, and it's also one that has precedent in that 10 square miles. It was 10 by 10 by 10. That was the original district. Was part of it was in Arlington, Virginia, that was retroceded as the term. That was a legal term back to Virginia. And so this would be a way of doing that, but still having your federal enclave, again, with the museums, the White House, the Capitol, the courthouse, and so forth, where no one lives other than the White House. And then that's a way of solving that, where folks in the District of Columbia would be represented. And again, it'd be by Maryland, but that's where it came from originally.
For those who may not have seen it, I've seen maps that show the old 10 by 10 or 10 square mile, 10 by 10, making the 100 square mile enclave. And some of the maps of Northern Virginia, for those who are not familiar with the geography of that part of the state, do still show that with some hatched line, just to give people a feel that
if you could look,
a good part of it. It was retro-seeded. Is that the term?
Right.
Retro-seeded back. Yes. But Maryland
returned, if you want to use that.
Returned. We can simplify it there on that with it and doing it. Is that a matter that involves constitutional action, or is that a matter between the district and Maryland too?
Oh, I think you need a constitutional amendment to do something like this, because part of it would be repealing that 23rd Amendment. And unless you completely did away, I don't think you should do away completely with the district, because the founders wanted to have a place that is a seat of government. I'm not sure if they ever envisioned it would become this populated as it did. In fact, that in the late 1840s that they said, oh, we don't need all of this on the Virginia side, where now is the Pentagon and obviously a great deal of there's forts and so forth. That's Arlington Cemetery's there as well, but they probably didn't envision the government being as big as it is. But the point is, there probably still should be that federal enclave. But I'm just thinking that that would be a way of having taxation with representation, but also having your federal seat of government, national government, but having representation for the people. And because I just don't think the District of Columbia has the attributes that you'd want of a state. It's just not a state. It can't feed itself. It can't do a lot of things that states normally could do.
Well, if it all came to pass, could turn those license plates, taxation without representation, probably into collector's items. So there's always that possibility as well. There's something in doing.
No, they're very smart license plates. It's good marketing by the leaders of the District of Columbia.
And certainly so with it. Again, Governor, thanks for your insights. Much appreciated.
Pleasure.